Yo, 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 Chaz here. Let's talk sweet spot workout. One thing I want to get out there is why sweet spot is super good to do during the base period. The second thing I want to hit on is why you would actually even want to do sweet spot in the first place. Like, what does it do to you when it comes to your threshold and just metabolically and different things. The third thing I want to talk about is how to properly progress sweet spot. And lastly, the fourth thing is I'm just going to lay out a simple starting point for doing a sweet spot workout, and then just kind of give you some guidelines on how to build that, because quite honestly, I currently am doing a ton of sweet spot. My athletes, I have them doing a lot of sweet spot as well, because right now is a very good time to work on threshold, because when you think about it, threshold takes a long time to build, and you can't spend that time during the season trying to build your threshold, because you need so much more VO2 or anaerobic side of things in order to race well. So during the off season, you see a lot of people knocking out a lot of type of sweet spot and threshold work because it's very slow at building your threshold. So the off season is the perfect time for that. Here we are in mid-December, and I know a lot of people are just starting to get back on the bike and really start to put in those solid base miles, because for a lot of people, your season doesn't really start till April, right? So if you're kind of late to jumping into the base season, right now is a great time to kick that off, which is doing a lot of sweet spot work. And then on top of that, this is just gonna get you a super good foundation laying for which now you can build on top of when it comes to the rest of your season. And hopefully you will stay strong throughout the entire season. You will have good stamina and endurance, and all of that work that you're gonna do down the road, like VO2 and anaerobic, you're gonna have a great base to build on top of. So your numbers and your form, your fitness should be able to be elevated to a higher level than what it was the year before, provided that you follow these next 4 steps on how to properly do sweet spot during the off season. All right, so go check it out. Throwback kit, throwback day. It's interesting how it's kind of warm, it's kind of cool at the same time. So I had a thermal jersey, my old school kit, so I threw that out, put that on. So sweet spot is a solid workout because you can actually do a decent amount of it. Like, I've been doing recently about 6 hours a week, 4 to 6 hours of sweet spot a week. Seems like a lot, and it is, and it sucks. But I've seen so many good gains. Like, what happens is, obviously your body gets used to buffering lactate, because when you're riding at sweet spot, you're actually able to clear it faster than what you can accumulate. So your body is learning how to just buffer through that. And then you're pushing the envelope on how long you can maintain that before your system tires out and can't keep up with the lactate clearing demands. The second thing that sweet spot does, it actually makes you a little bit more efficient when it comes to you using fats and carbs. So when I was first doing this, it's a steady progression, but I was doing 2x40, and at the end of that 40, I was starting to bonk. Like, it sucked because my body was relying on the carbs. But now I'm doing 3x35, and I'm ending, and I'm not bonking as bad. Like, sometimes I'm not bonking at all. Sometimes I barely start to experience it right when we get back to the car. So that just shows that, like, your body's starting to learn how to tap into some of those fat stores and use them a little bit for fuel, which actually will save that precious carbs and glycogen for down the road. Super cool. That's one reason why, actually that's 2 reasons why sweet spot during the off season is really good. Now, the important thing with sweet spot is you actually want to progress it. A lot of people will go out and do the exact same type of workout over and over and over, And you actually want to build to push your body. So I do it with my athletes. You know, I'll start them out with, you know, maybe 3x15 or something. Have them do that 2 or 3 times. Then we move into like 2x20, then like 2x25, then 2x30. And that's about the most that most people can handle when it comes to sweet spot. For me, like, I have a lot of years of fitness under my legs, and a lot of the goals that I want to achieve in the races we do are obviously longer. We do 4 or 5 hour races. I'm able to actually handle a little bit more work, but again, it's because I have like a solid 2 years of consistent riding under my belt, which makes it possible. So for most people, it'll be like, oh, I'm gonna go do as much sweet spot as I can. I wouldn't recommend that. I would start out with getting to where you can do about an hour of sweet spot, very manageable, and that might be your whole sweet spot build. Maybe you start out by trying to do 30 to 45 minutes of it, then eventually you're building into longer intervals where you're doing 2x30 to equal that hour. You know, maybe eventually you're doing, you know, maybe you go 3x15, that's 45 minutes. Then maybe you're going 2x20, that's 40 minutes, right? Then maybe you up it and you go 1x40, that's 40 minutes. And then you go back and you do, I don't know, 2x30. That's an hour, right? You worked up to it. For me, we're working up to 2 hours, which I hope to God that we don't actually have to do 2 hours of sweet spot. 2 hours of sweet spot is nuts. We're doing like an hour 45 right now, sweet spot. I'm gonna be honest, it's not fun. It's not the most fun thing in the world, but so many gains are being made because of it. So let's talk the breakdown of the workout. For most people, and sometimes it's a little bit different for like those 1 or 2 athletes out there, but for most people, you do sweet spot at 88% to about 94, 95%. So we want to try to do 88% to about 94, 95% of your FTP or your threshold. Basically, it gives you a really good zone in there, and especially if you're doing multiple repeats, what I find best that works really well is you kind of shoot for kind of the lower side. So for example, mine is 310 to about 333. I know 333, so random. But for the first one, I usually hold back and do around 315, 320. And then as I progress into them, I'll move higher into the zone and try to hold around 325. On the last one, I try to go definitely more on the 330 side. And it gets tough. Some days, all I can do is 320. Like, I can't go any higher. Other days, I can do, you know, 325 every single time. Like, it really depends on how your body responds that day. But the zone is big enough. There's a good chunk in there where you can ride in there comfortably. Like I said a little bit earlier, when you build the workout, you actually want to start, you know, on the lower end if you haven't done any sweet spot work. So you want to start more in the 10 minute to 15 minute range. And I think a good goal would be try to work up to an hour worth of sweet spot. So if you start in the 10 to 15 minute range, I would do either 2 or 3 sets of that. And then the rest time is pretty much going to be half the time of whatever you're doing the interval at, all right? But as they get longer, say you start doing 2 by 20 minutes, you know, 10 to 15 minutes is a good rest period, just completely zone 1. And then if you go super crazy on it and you start doing like 2 by 40, or you even do, you know, maybe 3 by 30, something like that. If you start working up to that range, your rest period is going to be anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes in between those intervals. Definitely want to make sure you eat really well and hydrate immediately after each interval, especially if you start going really long. You start doing like 2 by 40 or 3 by 30s, because you really need to get that glycogen back in your system as quick as possible to be refueled for the next effort. So words of wisdom with Nick right now on Sweet Spot. What's your words of wisdom for the people at home?
Go hard, drool a lot.
Yeah, homeboy is a messy climber. He is a messy climber. Like the Toll House time trial, you had an awesome shot of you just drooling.
Yes,
But when he sprints, he looks good. But when he climbs, which is the opposite though. When I sprint, I look goofy as junk. But when I climb, I'm like cool, calm, collect. But yeah, when I sprint, it looks. You can tell I don't sprint often. You can tell I don't win much. Woo! Just finished my sweet spot workout, but that basically is the breakdown of the whys you want to do sweet spot, you know, how it's going to help you, and then overall just kind of how to structure it and continue to build on it so you continue to make progress. Anyways, I'm wrecked. I'm gonna go home and eat. Keep riding, training hard, guys. See you in the next video.
Yeah.